Hi guys, JT here, and with every Humble Monthly, the question is, what are the games like? Well, here's a bit of information of each game in this month's Humble Monthly, to help you decide if it is for you. If you want to see more game deals like this, then smash that like and subscribe buttons. It really helps the channel out. So let's get into it. At number 1, the featured game of this month, DEATHLOOP. A first-person time-looping murder puzzle game where time is everything and nothing. You play as Colt, waking up in an island with no memory. The island is stuck in a time loop where the day repeats itself over and over again, with everyone performing the same actions throughout that one day. You're also stuck on this repeating day, but you're not performing the same actions of that day. Naturally, you want to escape this time-looped island, somehow. This island is controlled by 8 rich murderers called Visionaries, and you must assassinate all 8 of them within the same day. The story can get quite confusing, but where the narrative shines are the characters, Colt and Juliana. Who is Juliana? We will get to that in a minute. The world is spread out between 4 open districts across 4 time periods. Moving from one district to another moves the day forward, but while you're in a district, time stops so you can explore the world around you. This game is also partly a multiplayer, as Juliana can be controlled by another player to invade your game and murder you. This is very similar to Dark Souls, where players can invade other players' single-player experience to cause some players to throw their controllers at the screen. On the flip side, you can play as Juliana and invade other players' games to cause some mayhem too. You have access to multiple weapons that are upgradable. These ranges from pistols, submachine guns, and rifles with some legendary variants. You can even obtain a pair of pistols which you can stack together, turning into a rifle. The guns are very fun to use and every shot feels very punchy. In addition to your weapons of death and destruction, you will also have access to some special powers like in Dishonored. You'll have access to Shift, which is a short distance teleportation ability, an ability that can link one enemy to multiple enemies, so if that enemy gets killed, all other linked enemies are also killed, or even the ability of telekinesis. By combining your abilities and weapons, you can find some pretty creative ways to kill people. The game is open as to how you want to play it. You could be stealthy and perform silent assassinations, or go in guns blazing. Either way, it's a lot of fun to have the freedom to play the game. If you enjoy a faster paced and crazier version of Dishonored with an interesting premise and great main characters, then DEATHLOOP is an awesome game to play through. At number 2, we have Monster Train, a roguelike deck-building tower defense hybrid that lets you control the creatures of hell. The story isn't the main focus, but it gives a reason for the Monster Train to exist. A railroad is built between the different levels of hell as there was a temporary peace between heaven and hell. However, the peace agreement was cut short when heaven invades hell. Your job is to get to the core of hell as the Monster Train, or hell will be destroyed forever. As the game starts, you are to choose 2 different train tracks to take. Once you get into combat, you are to repel the invasion of heaven's creatures across 3 different floors of the train, with the 4th floor holding the pyre which the creatures of heaven are trying to extinguish, and one that you must defend at all costs. If the pyre is extinguished, it is game over. You are to place different minions of hell across 3 floors to stop heaven, and destroy them before the forces of heaven reaches the 4th floor. You fight against heaven by clever placements and combinations of monsters and spell cards which you can cast to hopefully banish the forces of heaven. There are a few clans that you can choose from during each playthrough, with each clan sporting their own sets of card spells. You can also pair 2 clans together for a run, so each run feels slightly different from the last. You can upgrade cards and also get rid of cards that are not useful to you. Choosing which track you take depends on what you want as a reward, like new cards and artifacts, or which battle your current deck can perform better in. There's a fair bit of RNG along the tracks, so each track you play through will not be the same as your last one. In saying that the RNG is fair, and the game even tells you who the boss is, so you can plan your track accordingly. So if you like some deck building roguelike experience with some strategic depth and card combinations, then I would highly recommend Monster Train. And number 3 we have the Dark Pictures Anthology, Little Hope, a narrative-focused survival horror game. Little Hope is the second installment in the series, with the first installment being The Man from Medan. If you've played the first game, then this game will feel very familiar. The story centers around 4 students and their professor, who are stranded in a town called Little Hope. As the team tries to escape the town, they start getting horrific visions of the past. Throughout the game, you can build or destroy relationships based on a few factors. You can make dialogue choices which will affect how other characters view you and build your own characteristics for your character. Although the dialogue choices don't add much to the plot, given that it has a narrative to follow, it adds into the group's dynamic, and being a narrative-focused game, it plays a really effective role. Your characters get visions of the 17th century witch trials, playing the doppelgangers from that time. This game has plenty of quick time events which don't really influence the story much. However, sometimes you'll come across some timed events that require you to make decisions quickly that will affect the story and who survives in your team and who dies. The gameplay will also have you control one of 5 characters in your team, exploring a small area and finding collectibles. There's also a multiplayer component in this game which is rare for a narrative game. Players take control of different characters throughout the story, making decisions independently from one another, which makes an interesting playthrough. Another interesting aspect is that although each character has a set personality like a nerd or the school bully, you can change them based on decisions that you make while playing them, essentially creating your own characters for the story. Little Hope has much to offer, with a great story, extremely good blend of gameplay and excellent cinematography that will trick you into thinking it is a movie rather than a game, and is definitely worth a playthrough. And number 4, we have Disciples Liberation, a fusion of RPG and tactical combat. You play as Aviana, a mercenary turned ruler of an ancient city, going on an adventure across the world of Nevendar. This game has narrative role-playing, base building, and a tactical grid-based combat system. As per standard RPG games, you can explore the world in a top-down view, talking to different inhabitants of Nevendar, explore dungeons, and capture production buildings. There are also dialogue choices that you will need to make along the way which will affect how the main story goes, companion quests, and the fate of the region's progress. Where this game really shines is the grid-based combat system, pitting you and your party against various denizens of Nevendar. Being a grid-based combat system, it all comes down to strategy, where you position each unit in relation to your enemy, what buffs and debuffs you can use on you or your enemies, and what magical abilities to use against the enemies. Every action will take up action points, so you have to choose each of your moves wisely. You can level up and acquire various magical skills for Aviana to suit your playstyle. You can be a full-on mage user, zapping or burning your enemies to a crisp, or be a melee fighter with a touch of magic, beating your enemies to a pulp while inflicting debuffs on them. The base building mechanic isn't the main focus of the game, but there is some. You can recruit and train units, buy and sell items and resources at the marketplace, and improve your weapons and armor through a blacksmith. Disciples Liberation is an awesome game to get into with some deep RPG elements, decent story, and great strategic combat. And number 5, we have Maid of Sker, an adventure horror game. You play as Thomas, and you have received a letter from your lover, pleading you to rescue her from a family's hotel named Sker Hotel. Her father has kept her prisoner in the hotel until she performs a song for a ritual. When you arrive, you find that everybody in the hotel has become monsters who are blind. You need to find 4 cylinders, music notes, and other things to stop them. The story is engaging with plenty of mystery and twists, and it is recommended that you pay attention to it as the details will really enhance your experience. Gameplay-wise, Maid of Sker will have you exploring the creepy hotel, going from one area to another while finding trinkets, solving puzzles, and avoiding enemies. You aren't capable of fighting enemies in this game, so you have to avoid them. Because they can't see you, they are hypersensitive to sound, so if an enemy is around, you have to hold your breath to avoid even breathing. And if you make any noise, they will come chasing after you, in which case you will have to either run or die. However, they aren't too difficult to avoid if you play patiently. Puzzles aren't difficult, but they are interesting enough to be engaging. There aren't too many jump scares in this game either. Rather, the game gives you a sense of unease as you traverse through the claustrophobic hotel while trying to avoid enemies. The sound design has also been designed to fill you with anxiety. Even when a calming tune plays, it never truly feels calming and the tension and anxiety still exists. This game is definitely best played with headphones on. If you like suspenseful horror games that will have you sneak around a creepy, anxiety-inducing hotel filled with monsters who are trying to murder you if you make a noise, then Maid of Sker is an awesome game to play. And number 6, we have Epic Chef, a cooking farming adventure game. You play as Zest and you have been marooned on an island by your crew. And for some reason you own some property on the island of Ambrosia, which is also haunted. It doesn't stop you though as you farm and gather materials for cooking and crafting. Everyone on this island is also only interested in one thing, that has everything to do with cooking, which includes farming, gathering materials to cook, and competing in cooking competitions. You start by growing crops with seeds available to you at the start of the game, with the opportunity to collect more seeds to grow different crops on your property. You then start collecting materials like wood so you can craft various structures like a windmill or a fence to keep your livestock. There's also a day and night cycle in this game which passes quite quickly. Most events and characters are only available during the day, so you have to plan your day to utilize daytime effectively. At night you have to return to your home to sleep, which is required to save your game. You want to make sure that you sleep frequently too, as this game does not autosave for you. Being an adventure game, there are main quests and side quests to do, although a lot of the time these side quests are fetch quests or looking for specific people to talk to. Your main quests will have you compete in a culinary battle like in the television show Iron Chef. where you battle it out with food against another character in the game. How well you do will depend on what ingredients you use and the preferences your judge has for his or her food. Overall, this game is quite slow paced, and is definitely on the relaxing side of its slower paced gameplay and quirky plot. And number 7, we have Railroad Corporation, a simulation management game based in 19th century North America. Your goal is to establish trade between the different settlements across randomly generated maps while trying to avoid bankruptcy. You could research new technologies, lobby for resources, and creating new structures to aid you in your journey. Each town produces different resources, and you can set railroads between them to create viable trade routes for moving these resources around in return for cash. You can also transport passengers for additional funds. Available research trees add upgrade potentials. As an example, you can increase the speed of your locomotive. You can also purchase larger trains to have greater carrying capacity and other advances. The usual task in each mission is to establish a solid economy, widen your influence, and develop your technologies. The atmosphere of this game is really good. You really feel like you are running a train company in the 19th century with appropriate aesthetics of trains, landscapes, and towns, all rendered with a certain charm. The music also supports the aesthetic as a whole package. Railroad Corporation certainly feels more like Sid Meier's Railroads and less like Railroad Tycoon 3, taking a more serious tone. Although in saying that, it does try to simplify the railroad building system for you, rather than requiring you to build one block of track at a time, making it faster than your average train simulator. If you like train simulator games, then you'll most probably like this game. If you're not into the niche, however, I can't say that I would recommend it. And number 8, we have Golf Gang, a fast-paced mini-golf game that is not what you would typically find in a golf game. There are a few modes available in Golf Gang, like Racing, where you will get the most points by finishing first, Classic, a traditional mini-golf mode where you can take your time, and Golf Gang, where you will get the most points if you finish first and with the fewest shots. There are also plenty of modifiers available to change up your game, like low gravity or rubberized golf balls, among others. In terms of courses, there are a few to choose from, each of their own themes and difficulty curves. As an example, you have a winter golf course where the map is covered in snow and it is rated as easy, or a horror-themed golf course with headstones on the map and it is rated as hard, giving you a variety of maps and courses to complete. In addition, each of these maps have their own quirks. Some maps have a flying section, so your ball could golf glide through hoops in the sky, while some maps have balloons for a golf ball to bounce across a huge gap. You can also buy cosmetics from the shop with in-game currency, and this ranges from golf ball skins, hats, to even mods and new courses. And to all of you real money spenders on virtual products, there is an ending in this game. All of it needs to be bought with in-game currency, which you can only earn by playing the game. There's even the Steam Workshop in this game, and it is amazing as you get to play some very interesting courses, like a course that is based on obstacles from Super Smash Bros. Melee, or courses inspired by the Fall Guys game. Where this game shines is definitely in the multiplayer, especially with friends as you race to the finish against them. If you like a mini golf game that is very fast paced and doesn't take itself too seriously at all, then I would recommend Golf Gang, especially if you have some friends to play along with. Another great month, this Humble Monthly, with some really good games. There are some horror games for you to get into the spirit of Halloween, so I'd highly recommend this month's bundle.